history of Ghana, which textbook, which law case has ever brought up the Adulod as a place that was used to plan the execution of the judges? Completely, it's not backed by any evidence whatsoever. Again, if you knew, if the Chief Justice in her life, and she's not a young person, she's old enough, she's past 63 or so. So if a person like this, who was old enough in 1981, knew that there was a planning to murder judges at that place, and she took no step and had decided to sit back until today, then she's a very dangerous citizen of this country. Yes, very, very dangerous. You knew all these things when those culprits involved had at all material times denied. And what is so worrisome is that being the Chief Justice of Ghana, every year you preside over the service that is held in honor of the judges. You preside over it. As a judge, you have gone there many times, and as a Chief Justice, you preside over at least twice. And now you come and tell us that you know all that happened, and you decided to keep quiet. In fact, I believe that Madame is doing a big injustice to herself. And as my colleague said, there are certain things. You have a family, you know, a husband, and children, and classmates, and church, everything. You don't have to come and do this in public. You see, until she did that, until she did that, I didn't even know that her direct uncle, father's elder brother, was this man who betrayed Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Alex Kesi, who took money from the CIA, and he was the most trusted confidant of Nkrumah, and told Kwame Nkrumah that Nkrumah should travel, there would be no coup, because CIA had promised him to make him the next president of Ghana. That man's niece is this man. Until all this matter, I wouldn't have known. So she should not sleep in just lie. Whether she likes it or not, she will not be the Chief Justice of Ghana forever. She should understand that.
Next slide on
is our lawyer and historian right here, Mr. Frimpong. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
As a lawyer, what do you make of the statements made by the suspended Chief Justice?
Well, as a lawyer, I believe that whatever she came here to say is completely wrong, because the Article 146 she mentioned specifies that in the case of the investigation at the committee level of the Chief Justice, because the position is so sacrosanct, nothing about it should be done in public. It should be in camera. But all that she has insisted on, including what she said yesterday, was that she wanted a public hearing of it. So it means that for your sake, Ghanaians must be prepared to be unconstitutional. For your sake, we must bend a portion of the Constitution. No, I don't think that is proper. Second, I heard her say that whatever has been leveled against her is completely wrong, and gave some instances. I think any time you would want to make such a statement, you don't pick portions of the petition or whatever allegation that has been made against you and make a case out of it. No, you rather read everything from A to Z. Then the people listening to you will have an opportunity of making their minds. You don't just just pick one. For example, to do with the finances, that she picked some money and then retired the money. That is just one example you were given. What about the extent of the petition? If it is 30-point petition, 50-point petition, is that what is saying relevant? Second, you should remember that it does not take up to 100% of the entire petition meeting the required standards as having been able to be proved before she will be dismissed. Each one of them can send her packing home. But before I conclude on this point, Kafui, let me make a statement as a lawyer. You see, under the Ghana 1960 Constitution, something happened after an attempt on Nkrumah's life in Kulungugu. The whole matter was brought before the Chief Justice. And the Chief Justice exonerated all the, the accused persons. Mm-hmm. You know, and there was one that offended Nkrumah personally, that Tewia Adamafiu, who traveled by Nkrumah's side to Burkina Faso. then upper voter, on their return, had deliberately remained in Burkina Faso. And upon hearing that there had been a bomb blast, immediately asked in Ga, did the man die? In the Ga language, did the man die? So Kwame Nkrumah felt that somebody who traveled with him, so that if he had returned with him on that day, would have died. Why did he decide to stay behind in Burkina Faso? 2, when he heard about the president's near death or death, why would you ask a question, did the president die? It means he was part of the conspiracy. But the Chief Justice said that no. If somebody asks whether the president died or not, doesn't mean he has conspired to kill. He's a human being. He's one of your ministers. So he has a right to find out whether you are dead or not. And Nkrumah summarily dismissed the Chief Justice, which everybody in the world said was wrong. Now, Rawlings, facing the same imaginary situation, that if I were Kwame Nkrumah, and then I had somebody like, say, a Kukosa, trying a similar case, how would I go about it? Look, the 1992 Constitution is only a transitional constitution, which should have immediately been amended or repealed by Kufuor, and then a real democratic constitution put in place to centralize every constitution made by a military officer, especially one that the military officer is metamorphosing into a civilian president would be, is one that is shown to fit his status. It's as simple as that. And we don't blame him. It is worldwide. So the next properly democratic government that is elected after the 2 term of the military officer, then the states sit down to amend the constitution, which was never done by. So back to my story. What Rawlings did was that, how would I find an opportunity to dismiss a Chief Justice without anybody blaming me? Look, Kafi, when you send an ordinary case to the Supreme Court, you have 5 judges of the Supreme Court sitting on it. How come that if you want to dismiss a whole Chief Justice of Ghana, you say only 2 judges of the Supreme Court and 3 members of the public? The meaning is that the 1992 Constitution has been crafted in a manner that if the executive wants to dismiss the Chief Justice, it becomes so easy as 1 + 1 for a class 1 pupil. And so, any reasonable Chief Justice who sits by and discovers that a petition about him or her has been forwarded to the president, and the president has meticulously followed all the processes up to the extent of setting up a committee to investigate you, please, nobody should tell you that the intention of that government is to dismiss you from office. And a sensible Chief Justice, don't let me put the word sensible, that's harsh. A reasonable Chief Justice should take caution and resign from office. When you resign, nobody knows why you have resigned. And the good thing is that you stop the committee report from being made public. And then number 2, she has served for about 22 years as a judge. You go home with all your entitlements. Luckily for you, judges retire on their salary. So when you retire, when you are on pension, you don't receive pension pay. You receive full pay as a Chief Justice of Ghana till the time that you die. And then finally, when we are listing the number of Chief Justices the country has had, there is no way after Enini Yebua they will jump you to any person. No. So if people are advising you to resign, they are not people advising you by way of threat. That is not true. It is people who love you and want you to go home with all your entitlements who are advising you. In any case, whatever she's saying here, she knows it is something inadmissible in law because she has no proof to back it. Finally, by her training as a lawyer and as a judge, she knows that we don't publicize things judicial. You don't do that. So the public statement she's making is completely wrong. What you rather do is that if there is any aspect of the trial or investigation which is wrong, the committee sittings, under the same constitution, you have the right to go to the High Court or the Supreme Court, as the case may be, to challenge it or to bring it down. When you come here for public sympathy, at the end of it all, you are only creating work for media people to do. They do it as we are discussing. After here, you go back to the committee sittings. And that will never change their report. But as a prophet, I will tell you that any president who sets up a committee to investigate you intends to dismiss you. And you should take caution and leave office before the report comes out, based on the history of Ghana.
I would say it's better for her to resign instead of trying to fight it. Like he said, there's a room for appeal.
Yes. It is not an end to it.
She says there's a room for appeal.
The law says whatever recommendation given by the committee will have to be compulsorily implemented by the president.
Okay.
So always under our constitution, similar, the president has no bite in it. It's other people doing it. So when you reach that level, just go away. But the good thing is that there is no right without infringement of right without a remedy.
Okay.
Ibi jus, ibi remedium. Wherever there is justice, there is a remedy.
Okay.
What they are doing is under justice with respect to the constitution.
Yes.
So the remedy is that every breach of an aspect of it can be remedied by the appropriate court. Okay. And the media is not a court that can give you the remedy you want.
Okay.
If they are treating your lawyers as, he says, like the magicians who appeared before Nebuchadnezzar. Where I disagree with her is that in the case of the magicians, one, they didn't know Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and so they didn't know the interpretation. Why do you liken yours today as your lawyers? Because in your case, you know the petition against you, all the charges, and you have even mentioned aspects of them here. So you know. And then two, we all know what the law says. And it is not your lawyers who are going to interpret it. The lawyers are only going to fight for you. So the two are not the same. The two scenarios can never be the same.
No Nebuchadnezzar comparisons here.
No.
She's definitely not Nebuchadnezzar. Far prettier and far kinder.
And the president too is not a Nebuchadnezzar.
I was ready to tell her. Tell is here. Tell her how me.
Cool. The Nebuchadnezzar has to go to, the Bible.
And then go check for the references.
And then ask, our AI friends, like, what did Nebuchadnezzar do? To get the context within which the CJ, suspended CJ, made the comment. But she said lots of other things as well in that press conference, and I just want to walk us through some of the key elements of her presentation to the Ghanaian public yesterday. So she took us through some bit of history, telling us that in all, so these are all exact quotes from the Chief Justice. So I am not saying this. This is what the CJ said yesterday. She said that in all of Ghana's 68-year history as an independent republic, there has never been a hearing for the removal of the Chief Justice. Unfortunately, every step of the removal process being undertaken against me is being done in a manner that breaks every rule on how justice is delivered in the country. Lawyer, if at any point you want to answer more specifically to any of the slides, but you are free to come in.
The first one.
Okay, the first one that she said.
68 years of constitutional development. You see, a constitution is always a very small book, just as one book of the Bible, not as big as the Bible itself. Then the interpretation of the aspects of the constitution, the provisions of the constitution, help the constitution to grow. We call such interpretations as made by the courts precedents. So the law grows out of precedents. Now, 68 years, somebody has now decided to test the efficacy of Article 146. Whatever decision that comes out of it will be called the precedent, which will be followed in future. A clear example was the Ghana election in which Dr. Bawumia sent to court, the pink sheet case.
You mean the petition?
Very good, the petition. Because it had never happened in Kenya before, they used the Ghana one as a precedent. So always the law develops as a result of precedent. And as a judge, she knows what is precedent, so she shouldn't worry about it. It's the first time that has happened to her. Next time it will happen to another person, and it will be a second time. Then the law is growing.
Okay, so a test of the law is what lawyer is saying. So let's go on to the next slide and what we have captured on her comments about the institutions that will be affected by this process. And the Chief Justice said, the suspended Chief Justice said, this process will affect how all High Court justices, justices of the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court justices, and all Chief Justices that will be appointed in the future may be removed from office. The law did not provide for the termination of their appointments by any authority.
That is also a mistake. Let me quote here. Let me quote what is here. The law did not provide for the termination of their appointment by any authority.
That's what she said.
So that should tell, it is true, what he's saying is true. It means that nobody can arbitrarily dismiss a judge, and for that matter, a Chief Justice from office. It is a process that somebody petitions, and then the President and Council of State come in, then taught by a committee report. The report is submitted by the President. The President implements it. Then the Supreme Court, that is the overlord guardian of the Constitution, is open to whichever side. If, for example, the Supreme Court throws out the committee report, the committee would also be represented there to defend itself. And if the committee report is also accepted and our leadership, the Chief Justice, feels that it was completely wrong, the office of the, the Supreme Court doors are always open. So what she is saying is rather a credit to the Constitution that it does not allow any individual to determine the fate of a Chief Justice. Then up there, the process will affect how a High Court, blah, 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 will be, that will be appointed in the future, may be removed from office. Whether appointed in future or present, it will affect them positively. Why will it affect them positively? All along, they take decisions and nobody complains. They take decisions and nobody complains. Today, as we speak, out of 33 million people of Ghana, we have got people who are so conscious to the effect that any act of a Supreme Court judge, including the Chief Justice, will be questioned. So it will affect them, and positively, because they will have to set up that whatever you are doing. Can you imagine that this lady sat down with her accountant or finance officer, signed for money, traveled to Arusha, Tanzania, and it has become part of the petition that should tell you that wherever you are, there is a third eye watching you. And that is why it will help judges after this decision to set up and do their work well, those who are not doing their work well.
Right, we'll go to our next slide. But she did talk about having retired or, reconciled some of those accounts in her statement. But we'll go to the next one on the screen where she talked about irregularities and illegalities. And this was her quote: "The violations have not stopped, but have escalated beyond anything I could have imagined as possible in justice delivery." And this is one of her key points. The Edu Lodge facility that I'm being tried in featured very prominently in the planning of the murder of judges on June 30th, 1981. Was Edu Lodge chosen for this inquiry to make me feel insecure? I think so. Those are the words of Gertrude Tokono yesterday. She said Edu Lodge was chosen to kind of throw her off her game a little bit, to borrow, for lack of a better expression. I wonder if CAF has any questions for you on that.
Well, it says the violations have not stopped, but have escalated beyond anything I could have imagined as possible in justice. This one she shouldn't have said because she has no evidence to back it. When it comes to Edu Lodge, where she alleges the...
she said he was her uncle. She stayed there for years, and it was a key, one of the places that were prominent in the planning and the murder of her uncle. She
has no evidence to back it. She has no evidence. In fact, where in the history of Ghana, which textbook, which law case has ever brought up the Edu Lodge as a place that was used to plan the execution of the judges? Completely, it's not backed by any evidence whatsoever. Again, if you knew, if the Chief Justice in her life, and she's not a young person, she's old enough, she's past 63 or so. So if a person like this, who was old enough in 1981, knew that there was a planning to murder judges at that place, and she took no step and had decided to sit back until today, then she's a very dangerous citizen of this country. Yes, very, very dangerous. You knew all these things when those culprits involved had at all material times denied. And what is so worrisome is that being the Chief Justice of Ghana, every year you preside over the service that is held in honor of the judges.
Judges,
Coming up soon.
Preside over it.
It's
As
next
a
week.
judge, you have gone there many times, and as a
Monday.
Chief Justice, you preside over at least twice. And now you come and tell us that you know all that happened, and you decided to keep quiet. But I believe that Madam is doing a big injustice to herself. And as my colleague said, there are certain things. You have a family, you know, a husband, and children, and classmates, and church, everything. You don't have to come and do this in public. You see, until she did that, until she did that, I didn't even know that her direct uncle, father's elder brother, was this man who betrayed Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Alex Kwesi, who took money from the CIA, and he was the most trusted confidant of Nkrumah, and told Kwame Nkrumah that Nkrumah should travel, there would be no coup, because CIA had promised him to make him the next president of Ghana. That man's niece is this man. Until all this matter, I wouldn't have known. So she should not sleep in those lies. Whether she likes it or not, she will not be the Chief Justice of Ghana forever. She should understand that.
Next slide on our screen, please.
So we came to do the Chief Justice today.
She talked about breach of rules of disclosure, and this is what she said. The Article 146 committee set up against me has refused to give me copies of the petitions. To date, the committee has refused and or failed to serve on me the petitions that form the basis of the hearing and any specific charges against me. Let's take the next one, and then we will continue. And she said that no record of the petition or the petitioner's case has also been filed. This is what she said. The committee has not only permitted two of the petitioners, Mr. Daniel Ofori and a group calling itself Shining Stars, not to testify and confirm on oath the petitions they have brought against me, but has also allowed them not to call anyone to testify on their behalf. So as we speak, there is nothing before the committee confirming the petitions brought by these two petitioners.
You see, what is wrong here is that in the case of the court, you know that our symbol is the scale, and it is two. The scale is dual, one here, one, it's a pair, and one should not outweigh the other.
There should be a balance.
Always there should be a balance. So it means that I'm told by a Ghana professor that before you kill a fowl, you should give it water to drink. Hear both sides before you take a decision. That is why our cases are held in court before a judge who is a disinterested arbiter in the matter. In the case of this public scrutiny of yourself, what you came there to say, it was between you and the media. And the media has no power, no right, nothing to have itself assisted with testing what you are saying, whether it is true or false. If there is anybody called Daniel Ofori at all, whether the committee has allowed them to speak or call witnesses at all, she could have filed a motion in court whereby the committee members will be present, at least with their lawyer, to answer to these allegations.
But is it within her rights to ask for copies of the petition, or for those who were accusing her to testify or cause others to testify on her behalf in order to hear from her accusers and face them directly?
100% right, provided those people will be heard at the committee level. Anybody who would be heard must have sent a petition to the president, and then it becomes of notice that that person will be heard. Then you will be made to write a response to it, and the two will be used against you. Please, just think about when somebody makes a complaint against you at the police station. He will write down his complaint, and they will call you that I have been called to answer this and this. I have nothing to say, but whatever that I say will be used against me. Then the two will be used in court against you. It's the same thing here. So if that Mr. Ofori and other people have not been allowed to speak, it means so there are several petitions against it. It means that petition is not going to be used. If, let's say, we have one petition which exhaustively deals with the subsequent ones, they can go ahead with just one. Okay, so and then you are lucky.
We are presuming that if the committee is not hearing from Daniel Ofori and Shining Stars, whatever allegations that those two have raised have been set aside. Is that a
on
good
paper,
assumption?
yes. But in practice, nobody knows whether what he's saying is true or false. If she has sent the matter to court, then as I'm saying with the scale, then you tell your story to the court. Then the court will hear the other side. But the media people you are narrating this to, how would they know whether what you are saying is factual or a fallacy?
Okay, so we'll take the next slide, and on that she has other things to say about what she calls the improper litigation process. And she said the committee indicated that it will conduct the hearing not as an inquiry but as a regular litigation. What I am reporting on is a situation that is totally unknown to the rule of law in this country. So she cited two different laws or CIs at work here. And I wonder what your thoughts are. I think she said CI 65 and one is CI 47. And she says that one is being applied here instead of the other. Help us understand that.
When we talk of litigation, we are talking about normally a court process where one always wins and one loses. When you talk about, so it is backed by law. When it is talk about a committee sittings, it's just an inquiry. After making the inquiry, you don't make a judgment over it. In the case of a litigation, you pass a judgment over it. In the case of an inquiry, it is just fact-finding. After that, you send your report to the entity or the person that asks you to inquire into the matter. You have finished. So she's saying that instead of the whole thing being treated as an inquiry, it is being treated as a litigation. Even though I don't know whether what he's saying is true or false, because as I'm saying, it's not being said in court. I believe that if they are treating it as a litigation, what she doesn't understand is that, one, they are not going to pass a judgment on you. Even if they say that we believe you should be dismissed, it will not come from them. It is the president that would announce it, unlike in the case of a court. But where every inquiry is a pseudo court, it's like a court, it's because you are allowed to go with your lawyers and they have the same courtroom rules, the same courtroom rule that one speaks, the other one keeps quiet. You have the right to take notes, you have the right to ask for adjournment, and then back whatever you are doing with your cases, authorities. So every inquiry is also a litigation because you fight against the other side and allows the committee members who are presiding to take their own decision, except that theirs cannot be read to you. They will send it to whoever put them there.
Okay. Next slide. Let's see what more the Chief Justice was saying when she addressed the media yesterday. Then the effect of the current proceedings. She said, I have also received threats and veiled threats to the effect that if I fail to resign or voluntarily retire, I will be made to suffer some harm or the other. If I resign under these circumstances, I will be saying that this flawed, unknown, and opaque process is acceptable. It is not. Let's see the next slide. Final warning and national attention. She said, behind me is every judge in this country. Behind me is every commissioner or head of an independent constitutional body in the country. If the nation is willing to accept these developments, it must be understood that I sounded the warning and the nation took the decision to be passive about it. The historical reference that she made, then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. Martin Naimoya, I think it is, 1946. Personal integrity, there is no one person who can look at me in the eye and accuse me of taking a bribe to decide a case. So she also said that yesterday. I believe that these are some of the stuff that we picked from a presentation yesterday, and I'll hand it over back to you, Ka.
Thank you so much.
But if I'm to conclude on this.
Yes, and then I'll get Kofi's
yes, if I should conclude on this. She says behind her is every judge in Ghana. That is not true, because you see, when her case started, it was the MPP people who were holding press conferences on her behalf in sympathy with her.
Are the lawyers and the justices allowed to come forward, whether in support or against the process?
If they were behind her, they would have decided not to go to court. And I don't think the executive, led by the president, could have had the power to compel them to go to court. The president would have dropped everything if all judges in Ghana, from magistrate to the senior most judge of the Supreme Court, they would have laid down their truths. They are human beings. Nobody is behind them. The moment they suspended her, they appointed the senior most judge. what's in the back for money. And he's doing his work with an expert efficiency. And all the court system is working perfectly. So it is, in fact, not just 12 people following Jesus. Some of them hated him. And then you are saying that more than 500 judges in Ghana, everybody likes you. It's not true.
So behind could also mean that if this stays or if this process continues, the next person will be another judge. The next person could be, so that could be what the behind means. I'm only trying to, proffer an alternative
to play
meaning.
The devil's advocate.
Semantics.
What he is saying is still wrong because once it is in the Constitution and it has not been changed, any Supreme Court judge or any Chief Justice who misbehaves or acts incompetently will suffer the same fate. And it is something that they know already. He is not the one telling them. He's not the one telling them. It's in Article 146. So he shouldn't tell anybody. As I sit here, I know when we are supposed to close. So after that time, I won't continue to sit here. I knew it before coming.
Thank you. And briefly, if you were in his shoes, would you take the same? If you were in her shoes, would this be your stance?
No, I'll quickly resign because, as I said, our constitution is such that when the executive will want to sack you, it will do that. The moment I see it coming, I'll quickly leave. And maybe she doesn't understand why they made 3 ordinary people selected by the president and 2 Supreme Court judges instead of the constitution seeing the position of the Chief Justice as so sanctimonious.
That it should be only judges.
Only just 7 judges. You understand? And then they go and sit there, and then you see the seriousness of it. You put the ordinary people who do not, in practice, we say, have not been tutored in the law.
Yeah, of course.
And then only 2, so that when it comes to decision taking, when the 2 even go to your side, the 3 would outweigh them. So you should understand the spirit behind Article 146 that it was created to make a president sack a Chief Justice in power without having the same blame as Akroma had. It's very simple. So we're there, I'll quickly go. And indeed, one Chief Justice in Ghana has remarked that Mrs. Justice Mensah Bonsu, Mrs. Professor Justice Mensah, has said that sacking a Chief Justice in Ghana is so easy as ABCD. And this was something I started saying many times ago. You remember? You called me and I said this long before we got to this day, long before Mensah Bonsu came in.